Today, the Chinese government decided to hold a press conference in Canberra that is perhaps the weirdest press conference that has been held in a long time in Australia. It shows the contempt that the Chinese regime has for a free press. For, of course, they do not have that in China. They are contemptuous of the free press that includes this program, this broadcast, and the things that we have told you about what happens relentlessly in China, particularly to the Uyghur population, a population of people whom are put into re-education camps. These re-education camps are violent. These are places where the reason you are taken from your family home, the reason that you are put into these camps is because you don't believe in the ultimate deity that is the powers in Beijing. You believe in something else. Now, here in the free world, we know that that's a problem. We know that that's unacceptable. We know that the stories that are happening are very hard to tell because it is almost impossible to get genuine information out of these camps. We do get a glimpse from time to time, and it is horrific.
They were 3 men, not 1, but 3. They did whatever evil their mind could think of, and they didn't spare any part of my body. They didn't just rape. They were barbaric.
Yet the Chinese government today, in Canberra, in its embassy, decided to show, among other things, a propaganda video that referred to the part of China where they keep the Uyghurs as, quote, a wonderful land. Propaganda videos were also shown to the Australian press, some of whom took it live and beamed it across the country today.
Xinjiang has been transformed into a land of life, a land of thriving vitality.
So despite the fact that you know what happens in that place, despite the fact that you have heard from the people whom have been brutalised, and that is just a small fraction of those that have been brutalised by the Chinese authorities, today the Chinese government in Canberra, in their embassy in Australia, tried to use the talking points of dismissal that often are used by the left in this country to pretend that what you can see with your own eyes is not true. This crap was said today and amazingly was not laughed at by every reporter in the room.
Over some time, there has been quite some distorted coverage about Xinjiang in certain Western media. And those reports are basically based on disinformation or misinformation. Today's press conference is to help you, I mean the Australian journalists, to have a better understanding of the actual situation in Xinjiang.
What garbage. This is state media stuff. The government says it, so therefore it must be true. The government handpicks the people who they will put in front of a camera and tells you this is absolutely the case. And anything else is disinformation, i.e. a lie, or misinformation, which is they just don't get their facts right. Stuff like this from the BBC.
Those who were taken inside were locked in a cell which held 8 to 16 inmates. There were cameras watching them all the time, and there were books about Xi Jinping. They have to study the book and memorize them in Chinese. If they fell, the punishment was severe.
Some of these books, by the way, are available for sale in Australian airports. You may notice that if you be flying anytime soon. Have a look at some of the material that is supposedly there to educate people about China. It is propaganda that is being sold in those bookshops around the country, but it is being force-fed to the people who believe in something that is a higher power than that of Beijing. This is deadly serious stuff, because China is on the march, and China will crush anyone who stands in its way. And they will use the power of state media and the power of buying off either institutions or people of influence in Western countries to try to tell you that what you see with your own eyes isn't really happening, that the true picture of what is happening to the Uyghurs in this part of China is apparently, well, things like this that were served up to the Australian media today.
Spread rumors that Xinjiang sets up concentration camps, implements massive forced labor, conducts forced sterilization against ethnic minorities, and commits genocide. These allegations cannot be more preposterous, and they are downright lies. Yet, some Western politicians would rather believe in lies fabricated by a few liars than listen to the common views of the 25 million Xinjiang people.
With the persuasion, I went to vocational education training center in the county. In the vocational and training center, we learn about spoken Chinese, law, vocational skills, and the deregularization. Through study, I'm clear about what is illegal and what is legal, what is the right thing to do, and what is the wrong thing to do.
Do you believe this? I don't. I believe this.
China used to deny that these places exist. But now we're being given a tour. The message? These are schools, not prisons.
他们受到一定的极端思想感染以后，为了就是把自己思想里面的极端思想的感染程度去除。
But the more we ask, have you been convicted of a crime?
我没有犯罪，我就是犯的错。
How often are you able to pray here?
国家法律规定学校公共场所，公共场所不能从事宗教活动。
Thankfully, there was pushback from our very own Tom Connell, who asked this question of the ambassador today in Canberra.
The Chinese government has been shown to hide the truth over something as basic as air pollution in Beijing. Can you understand why people think the Chinese government would also hide the truth over something as important as persecution of Uyghur Muslims?
Your question is provocative, and it seemed as I don't know how did you base your question on what facts? I don't know how you got this as allegations. You made this allegation on what basis?
Facts, mate. And in Australia, we're allowed to ask you. I certainly hope, for the digital safety of everyone who attended that event, they didn't take their mobile phones with them today. Remember, technically, under Australian law and any law around the world, when you go to somebody else's embassy, you're technically playing by their rules because it's technically their land. So I hope your trip to China today, you didn't take your mobile phones with you. We'll find out in the next little while. Now, why does this matter? Now, it matters because we have to stand up for the West. Why do we keep talking about it? Because it matters. Because China is the biggest threat to the way the world works. The way the world can be free and the way that human beings can be an open dissent of their government. It is something that is not tolerated by China. And while, as I say, there are plenty of people who will get very rich on selling stuff to China, and there'll be plenty of universities who will be able to fill their classrooms with people who could barely speak the language as they fiddle around with English language tests, as we read in the newspapers today here in Australia. The truth is that there are 1.2 million good Chinese people in this country, people of Chinese extraction. Either they or their parents come from China. They are more than welcome in this country. We have no beef with them. But a huge portion of those people also read Chinese language news that supposedly emanates from Australia, but as recent reporting from our own taxpayer-funded media organisations has shown, is heavily being influenced by Beijing. Are those people going to read propaganda that was presented today by the Chinese embassy, or will they read from those that will be critical of the garbage that was served up today? We will wait, we will see. And of course, all of these things are often distractions, because we learnt today that the contact books of Australian diplomats have been hacked. I wonder by whom? Mike Pompeo, the former US Secretary of State, reminds us of why this is so damn important. The Chinese Communist Party deeply believes that their Marxist-Leninist ideology is the right ideology for the world, and they attempt to impose their ideology everywhere. Their intentions are to undermine democracy. So you know that we have been warned, but my fear is that there are plenty of people who will get information that will just be the propaganda, and it will be propaganda that's approved by Beijing but is actually produced for people of Chinese descent in this country. So well done to all the reporters who did stand up, but I repeat, I hope you didn't take your phones with you today.